It was sustaining you. I'm saying this for a reason. Look at this. God created plants that were beautiful to look at. They weren't just tasting good, they looked good. God wasn't just trying to give Adam enough to just barely make it by. He gave him something beautiful. He gave him something he would appreciate, that he would love, that he would like. There was aesthetics here. You understand what I'm saying? It was pretty. The Garden of Eden wasn't just some place that would sustain him. It was beautiful. He enjoyed living there. He enjoyed looking at it. It said it was pleasing to look at. You guys follow me? Eden's blessing isn't just getting you by. Isn't just going to supply you with enough gruel to make it so your belly's full. It's giving you something good. All right? So out of the ground, God caused, and the other thing is God caused the trees to grow. It wasn't Adam, it was God. God made the garden, God put Adam in the garden, and then God caused all of these plants, the trees, to grow that were beautiful. And then he gives the boundaries here in verse 10. There was boundaries to the garden. And look at verse 12. I like this. He says, and the gold of that land was good. There was gold everywhere. Something that, to us, it's gold. That's a big deal. It's gold everywhere. It was good gold. And he talks about the different rivers that flowed through the garden. And then verse 15, it says, the Lord took the man and put him into the Garden of Eden to cultivate it and to keep it. Now, this is interesting. What was man's job? The Hebrew word here that's used for cultivate and keep it is shamar and abed. Shamar and abed, it meant to preserve it, to keep it, to protect it, to watch over it, and to enslave it, to cause it to bring to pass and to grow. The first thing that God spoke to man after he created him was in Genesis 1. I didn't read that because I'm going to read that in the end. But then when he put him in the garden, he said, this is your job. How do you live in the Eden system? You got to protect it. Isn't it kind of interesting that God told Adam to protect Eden? That's kind of amazing, isn't it? Well, what did he say? He said he had dominion over all of the, back in Genesis 1, he had dominion over everything. The earth was Adam's. It belonged to him. That Garden of Eden was his garden. That was God's perfect will for him. It had boundaries. It was beautiful. God took care of everything and provided everything there, but Adam had to protect it. In the Eden system, in God's way of doing things, when you're in the blessing, God has given you all these wonderful things. He's given you prosperity. He's given you health. He's given you all these great things. But it's up to you to take a stand when the devil tries to take it away from you. God knew the devil was going to step into that garden. He did not have a right to go into that garden. And to go to Eve, at first Eve, and said, all the things that he said, he didn't have a right to come in there. And God knew that was going to happen. So he told Adam, you've got to protect this blessing. You have to protect it. You have to cause this blessing to work for you, not you work for it. You see? Because he said that you have to preserve it, to watch over it, to enslave it, to cause it to bring to pass. You had to make this blessing work for you. The Garden of Eden was meant to expand over the whole earth. That was God's will. Now you say, well then why didn't God just put the Garden of Eden over the whole earth? Because he wanted man to do something. He wanted man to have a purpose, to have a meaning, to have a reason to live. To stand against the enemy when he tried to come in that garden and keep it growing over the whole earth. That was God's original intent for man. To be in the image of God. It says he created in the image of God. To name things, to create things, to act as God would act on this earth. That was God's intentional will for man. That was his original will. In this Eden blessing. Are you guys still with me? You follow me? I know I'm getting into some deep stuff here, but I want you to stay with me. God's will was for the Eden blessing to expand over the whole world. And man, as he produced children, to multiply and to go over the whole world, and that they would all have the same command to protect this garden, to keep it growing, and to keep the enemy out of it. That was God's will here. Now, the Eden blessing is not like the world curse. Now, what happened in Genesis 3? So what happened? Adam disobeyed. He decided to bow his knee to the devil, give over his authority to the devil, and look at what happened. Because of that, the curse came. And the curse you'll find here is in chapter 3, verse 17. And God said to Adam, because you have listened to the voice of your wife and have eaten the tree which I commanded you not to, saying, you shall not eat of this, cursed is the ground because of you. Not because of God. God did not curse the ground. People, I don't care, I've heard this so many times. People go, God put a curse on the land. God did not put a curse on the land. The land was cursed because of Adam. Cursed is the ground because of you. In toil you shall eat of it all the days of your life. Both thorns and thistles it shall grow for you, and you shall eat of the plants of the field. By the sweat of your face you shall eat bread till you return to the ground. The curse was working and toiling and never seeing a blessing out of it. That's the world system. Look at what's going on right now. Look around. Really, just take a minute to really think about things. It's funny that we don't understand our point in history sometimes, that how we are in a time that is so different than any other time. How many people are out of work right now? How many people have worked and toiled under the world system to put up their savings, right? Their 401ks and all that. Where are their 401ks now? I know of some people that went from, having a retirement to basically hoping they still have Social Security to live off of. Yeah, toil. By the sweat of your brow you will work, and all you'll get is thorns and thistles. That's the world system. Working or making a living is not God's will. God's will was never for you just to go out and just beat yourself up and that's your blessing. That was not God's will. That was never God's will. I want you to understand that. That's important. Now you say, okay, so we should all just quit our jobs. Well, yeah, that would be wonderful, right? I got a word from the Lord. Quit your job. No. Your job or what you do, number one, you're not characterized by your employment. If you are, you have totally missed it. I would hope that you don't think that your employment is who you are. It's not. It's what God uses for you to be blessed. What God uses to bless you, it's one avenue. It's not the only avenue. That's your seed. You have to look at your employment as your seed. What is God's will for you? God's will is for you to tend the Garden of Eden. Not to go out and work by the sweat of your brow outside the garden. No. That's just part of the work, is part of it. That's where you get the seed. That's where you get the money to be able to give. That's where you go to do the things that God wants you to do. But that's not the end of all things. It's not. What if you lost your job? Well, if that's who you are, then guess what? You might as well go put a bullet in your head. Because you lost your life, right? That's your life. You guys understand what I'm saying? That's the world system. That mentality is the world system. It's working to make a living. God never meant for us to do that. Turn to Isaiah 51. The Eden blessing. This Eden blessing is the blessing of Abraham. I want to go into this here. What does that mean, the blessing of Abraham? I told you guys I'm going to get deep here. So look at this in Isaiah 51. You guys still with me? All right. One person, I got the grunt. Okay, Isaiah 51. I want to go to verse 2. It's Isaiah prophesying here. He says, look to Abraham your father, in verse 2. Look to Abraham your father and to Sarah who gave you birth in pain. When he was one I called him, then I blessed him, I multiplied him. Indeed, the Lord will comfort Zion. He will comfort all of her waste places, or all of her deserted places. And the wilderness he will make like Eden, and her desert like the garden of the Lord. Joy and gladness will be found in her, and thanksgiving in the sound of melody. The Eden blessing is the blessing of Abraham. What he's saying here, he said, look to your father Abraham. That was the Eden blessing. And it's amazing that in Galatians, speaking of us, Christians, in Galatians 3, Paul said that the blessing of Abraham might come to the Gentiles by faith. The blessing of Eden, living in the Eden blessing, comes about by living in faith, like Abraham. Now, I want to say something else to you, too. Who is Zion? Look at this. He says, indeed, the Lord will comfort Zion. He will make Zion's wilderness like Eden. Who is Zion? Well, anybody who's read the Bible a little bit might know this. Who is Zion? I'm not talking about the Matrix.
Isn't Zion like Jerusalem?
It's the New Jerusalem church. In Hebrews chapter 12, it says that you have come to Zion, Mount Zion, the church of the living God. And that's what Zion is. We are Zion.